Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're digging into a really interesting piece of the dinosaur puzzle. It's called Adratiklit bulafa.
That's right, a newly identified stegosaur.
And if you're listening because you want to get up to speed quickly, without getting bogged down in jargon, this is for you. We're aiming to give you the essentials on this significant find.
Yeah, we've got the original scientific paper here, all the details. And our goal today is basically to pull out the core information. Why Adratiklit is important and what it tells us about stegosaur distribution back in the Jurassic.
Okay, let's start with the name itself. It's pretty cool. Adratiklit.
Uh-huh. It means mountain lizard in the Berber language.
Mountain lizard. Nice. And bulafa.
That points to the specific place it was found near Bulafa in Morocco.
Mhm.
So the name itself tells a story.
Right. Location. And that's critical here, isn't it?
Absolutely. Adratiklit lived in the Middle Jurassic. We're talking roughly 168 to 164 million years ago.
Wow, way back.
Way back. And geographically, this was Gondwana, the supercontinent that later broke up into the southern continents.
Okay, so North Africa then was part of this huge southern landmass.
Exactly. And finding a stegosaur there from that specific time, well, it's a bit unusual.
Unusual how? Weren't stegosaurs kind of everywhere?
Not really, not back then, or at least that's what the fossil record suggested. See, during the Jurassic, most stegosaur fossils, the really abundant ones, turn up in Laurasia.
Laurasia. That's the northern supercontinent, like future North America and Eurasia.
Spot on. But down south, in Gondwana, finds are, well, they're super scarce. It's like finding just a few footprints compared to a whole herd.
So the thinking was that stegosaurs were mostly a northern thing back then.
Pretty much. We had some hints, fragmentary bones, some trackways that suggested maybe some Euripidans were around in Gondwana.
Euripodans, that's the bigger group, right? Stegosaurs and ankylosaurs.
Correct, the armored dinosaurs. So there were whispers, but Adrateklit is the first actual described Euripidan species from North Africa. It's concrete evidence.
Okay, first described. Why is that phrasing so important? What's the difference between a hint and a described species?
Well, finding a toe bone here, a track there,
Yeah.
it tells you something was there, but not much about what it was exactly.
Right, not enough detail.
Exactly. To describe a species, you need enough fossil material like vertebrae, limb bones, to identify unique features, compare it properly, and give it a scientific name. Adratiklit gives us that.
So it moves from maybe something like a stegosaur was here to, okay, we have this specific stegosaur.
Precisely. And not just any stegosaur. It turns out Adratiklit is actually one of the oldest known stegosaurs globally.
Really? How old are we talking compared to others?
It's right up there in age with dinosaurs like Shanosaurus from China, Isobarysaur from South America, and another one known informally as Phryginostegos. These are all very early representatives.
So it wasn't some late surviving relic. It was part of the initial wave of stegosaur evolution.
That's what it looks like. Along with another early one called Thyreosaurus, also from Morocco actually. Adratiklit is a really important data point. It helps us understand the early evolution and spread of these dinosaurs.
Okay, so let's talk fossils. What did they actually find? What parts of this mountain lizard do we have?
The key specimen, the one the description is officially based on, we call it the holotype, is a dorsal vertebra, a bone from its back.
Just one bone.
That's the holotype, yes. But there are other referred specimens, 3 neck vertebrae, another dorsal vertebra, and quite importantly, a left humerus.
The upper arm bone.
Correct. Now, an interesting wrinkle here is how these fossils came to light. They weren't found by a single university dig initially.
Oh.
The Natural History Museum in London actually acquired them from commercial fossil traders over time. And they likely represent more than one individual animal.
So it's pieced together from different finds, possibly different animals, all from the same area and type.
That seems to be the case. It adds a layer of complexity, but the bones are consistent with belonging to the same species.
Did they ever try to find the original dig site?
They did. In 2018, a team went to the Bulafa area trying to locate this specific spot or find more material.
Oh, any luck.
No more Adratiklit bones turned up on that trip, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a waste. They gathered really valuable geological information about the rock formation, the Elmer's III formation where the fossils came from. It helped confirm the age and the environment.
Okay. And you mentioned the humerus, the arm bone. Was it big? What does it tell us about the size of Adratiklit?
It's a pretty substantial bone, 61 centimeters long.
So about 2 feet.
Roughly, yes. Based on that and the vertebrae, the paleontologists estimate Adratiklit might have reached up to 7 meters in length.
23 feet. That's a decent-sized dinosaur.
Definitely respectable, but, it's still an estimate. Without a full skeleton, there's always some uncertainty.
Naturally. So we have these bones, likely from a few individuals. How do scientists know for sure it's a new species and not just, say, a variation of Kentrosaurus or something already known?
That comes down to the unique details, the autapomorphies.
Right, you mentioned those, the unique identifier.
Exactly. The researchers identified two specific unique characteristics in the dorsal vertebrae of Adratiklit that you don't see in any other known stegosaur.
Okay, let's break them down. What's the first one?
On the top surface of a part called the prehistoric epiphysis, that's a bony process that helps connect one vertebra to the next.
Okay.
There's a small, rough, kind of triangular bump or protrusion. It sits just behind the actual joint surface. It's subtle but distinct.
A little extra bump on the connector bit. Got
Yeah.
it. And the second unique feature.
This also involves the dorsal vertebrae. There are these bony ridges called laminae that run between the main body of the vertebra and the part where the rib attaches, the parapophysis.
Mm-hmm.
In Verticlet, these ridges, the centroperipacusial laminae, they end in these sort of rough, bony areas that actually stick forward, flanking the opening for the spinal cord.
Whoa. Okay, so specific little bony outgrowths near the spinal canal.
Exactly. These aren't seen in other stegosaurs. They're diagnostic for Adratiklit. They're like its anatomical fingerprint.
That's incredible detail. So based on these unique traits and the overall structure, where does Adratiklit fit in the bigger stegosaur picture? Its family tree.
The analysis places it as a basal stegosaurian, meaning it branches off relatively early in the group's evolutionary history.
Okay, an early member.
Yes, but here's the really surprising part. Phylogenetically, it appears more closely related to European stegosaurs like Dacenturus and Miragaia.
Wait, European ones?
Yes, more closely related to them than to the stegosaurs found geographically closer in other parts of Gondwana, like Kentrosaurus in East Africa or Pteranodon in South Africa.
Hold on, so this North African stegosaur from the Middle Jurassic, its closest cousins are from late Jurassic Europe, not the ones that were presumably living nearby on the same landmass.
That's what the analysis suggests. It's quite a twist.
Yeah.
It implies that the group Adratiklit belongs to, the Dacenturini subfamily.
Dacenturina.
Okay. Which we previously thought was pretty much restricted to the late Jurassic of Europe, actually had earlier roots and a wider distribution that included North Africa.
Mind blown. That really messes with the old maps of where these guys lived and when, doesn't it?
It certainly does. It suggests that dispersal and evolutionary relationships were much more complex than a simple north versus south picture. There was clearly more mixing or earlier divergence than we appreciated.
The paper mentions other stegosaurs too, just for context. Where do they fit relative to Adratiklit and its European cousins?
Right, so the broader family, Stegosauridae, includes a lot of diversity. You have Kentrosaurus and Pteranodon that we mentioned as the Gondwanan forms, less related to Adratiklit. Then you have Adratiklit and its closer relatives, Dacenturus and Miragaia in the Dacenturinae. And then there are others like Tuashankosis from China and the more famous later forms like Hesperosaurus, Loricatosaurus, and of course Stegosaurus itself from North America. Adratiklit's position helps clarify those early branching points.
It puts things in perspective. And finally, the practical details. Who did the work? Who gets the credit for describing Adratiklit?
The paper was authored by Susanna Maidment, Thomas Raven, Driswar Hash, and Paul Barrett. A really solid team.
And when did this come out?
It was published online, first in the journal Gondwana Research back in August 2019, and then appeared in print in January 2020.
Got it. Okay, so let's sort of wrap this up. As we finish this deep dive on Adratiklit bulafa, what are the main things we should take away?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that Adratiklit fundamentally changes our view of stegosaur distribution. Finding it in Middle Jurassic North Africa shows they were in Gondwana earlier and more widely than we knew.
Okay, point one, early presence in Gondwana.
Point two, its surprising connection to European forms, the Dacenturines. This suggests a more complicated story of dinosaur movement and evolution across the globe during the Jurassic. Maybe Gondwana and Laurasia weren't as isolated for these animals as we thought, or the group is older than we realized.
Right. Unexpected family ties.
And third, its unique anatomical features, those autapomorphies, add valuable detail to our understanding of early stegosaur anatomy and evolution. It helps refine the family tree.
So for you listening, this discovery is a great example of how science evolves. A few bones from Morocco can reshape our understanding of life millions of years ago, highlighting connections across ancient continents.
Absolutely. And it leaves us with some juicy questions to ponder, doesn't it?
Like what?
Well, Given this unexpected link between Adratiklit and European stegosaurs, what other surprising connections might be waiting to be discovered in the fossil record? Did dinosaurs move between Gondwana and Laurasia more freely than we assume?
Good question.
And also, what does finding Adratiklit specifically in North Africa tell us about that region's environment back in the Middle Jurassic? What kind of ecosystem supported this fairly large armored herbivore? It paints a richer picture of Jurassic Africa.
Fascinating stuff to think about. A mountain lizard that really shook things up.